When it comes to the absolute pinnacle of football, there's no other match that is quite like the World Cup final. Starting with the inaugural tournament back in 1930 to the most recent edition in 2022, we've seen 8 nations be crowned as world champions over the course of 22 thrilling World Cup final matches. With the 2026 edition of this historic tournament just over a year away, the world is patiently waiting for yet another final that will shock us to the core, filled with the twists and turns that define the beautiful game. Today, we're taking a look at every World Cup final from the past 95 years to see which games are immortalized in footballing folklore and which matches live on in only the record books. The World Cup final is always a grand spectacle, so let's go ahead and rank them all. Starting things off in the F tier, the first two matches are the 1990 World Cup final between West Germany and Argentina and the 1994 World Cup final between Brazil and Italy. The 1990 World Cup final took place at the Stadio Olimpico in Rome, Italy, and the 73,000 fans in attendance got to witness a truly lackluster match. The West Germans came out swinging in the first half, but some solid chances from Andreas Brehme and Rudi Völler would amount to nothing as the match went into halftime at 0-0. Argentina's second half performance was even worse than the first 45 minutes, and with 2 red cards to both Pedro Monzon and Gustavo De Zotti, things went from bad to worse for the South Americans. The only goal in this match came from Brehme in the 85th minute, and with his smooth penalty finish in the bottom right corner, the match ended as a 1-0 victory for the West Germans. For a tournament like Italia 1990 to end the way that it did, it leaves a lot to be desired when compared to other World Cups. Moving on to the next entry in the F tier, the 1994 World Cup final took place at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California between Brazil and Italy. The match-deciding penalty from Roberto Baggio is one of the most iconic moments in World Cup history, but everything else that came from this match has been forgotten about in the memories of many football fans. It was a tactical chess match between two sides who played very different styles of football, and both sets of defensive lines held their ground throughout this match. Even with Brazil dominating the extra frame, there was nothing that could separate the two sides as the World Cup final went to a penalty shootout for the first time in history. Brazil went on to miss their first penalty, but with missed attempts from Baresi, Massaro, and Roberto Baggio for Italy, Brazil went on to capture their 4th World Cup title. This final had the potential to be an all-time great match, but 1 minute of insanity does not make up for the other 119 minutes of subpar action. These two matches leave a lot to be desired for both homegrown and neutral fans alike, so they go into the F tier today. Moving on to the D tier, the first two matches are the 1934 World Cup final between Italy and Czechoslovakia and the 2006 World Cup final between Italy and France. The 1934 World Cup final took place at the Stadio Nazionale PNF in Rome, Italy, and remains one of the most politically charged finals in the tournament's history. Considering the fact that Italy were the heavy favorites in this match, it was a surprise that the first 45 minutes were unable to produce any goals. Czechoslovakia brought the game to life when Antonín Puc scored the opener in the 71st minute, but Raimundo Orsi's attempt just 10 minutes later would bring the game level at 1-1. The World Cup final's first ever extra time would see Angelo Schiavio score the winner in the 95th minute as the match ended with a 2-1 victory for the Italian side. Even with a tense and aggressive atmosphere both on and off the pitch, the 1934 World Cup final is remembered for Italy's maiden win, but not much else. Moving on to the next match in the D tier, the 2006 World Cup final saw Italy and France battle it out at the Olympiastadion in Berlin, Germany. This match, like the 1994 final, is remembered for one very specific event, while the rest of the match is often overlooked. The match got off to a very promising start, with Zidane's Panenka penalty beating Buffon in the 7th minute, while Materazzi's towering header gave Italy the equalizer in the 19th minute. The next 100 minutes produced little in terms of genuine scoring chances, but what happened in the second half of extra time is etched into World Cup history forever. With Zinedine Zidane's infamous headbutt on Marco Materazzi, the French side were now down to 10 men, and the momentum in this match suddenly shifted in Italy's favor. With Trezeguet going on to miss France's second penalty, Fabio Grosso's decisive penalty would find the back of the net as Italy went on to capture their 4th ever World Cup title. There is no denying that this match produced some unforgettable moments from certain individuals, but as a whole, this game does not stack up when compared to some of the other finals. These two games had some moments worth remembering, but in the grand scheme of things, they can only crack the D tier today. Moving on to the C tier, the first 3 matches are the 1938 World Cup final between Italy and Hungary, the 1962 World Cup final between Brazil and Czechoslovakia, and the 1982 World Cup final between Italy and West Germany. The 1938 World Cup final took place at the Stade Olympique des Colombes in Paris, France, with reigning world champions Italy taking on Hungary. The match got off to a crazy start with a brace from Gino Colosi, a goal from Pal Titkos in the 8th minute, and a goal from Silvio Piola, bringing the game to a 3-1 scoreline, all in the space of 35 minutes. The Hungarians began to mount a comeback with a goal from captain György Sarosi in the 70th minute, but with Piola's second goal of the match coming in the 82nd minute, the match ended as a a 4-2 victory for the men in blue. This match was a 6-goal thriller that saw plenty of momentum shifts between the two sides, but given how dominant Italy's attack was in this match, it goes into the C tier for now. The next match in this list is the 1962 World Cup final that took place at the Estadio Nacional in Santiago, Chile between Brazil and Czechoslovakia. The European side opened the scoring in shocking fashion, with Josef Masopust getting the opening goal in the 15th minute. Brazil responded almost instantly, and with Amarildo pouncing on an error from the opposing goalkeeper in the 17th minute, the match went into halftime at 1-1. The second half would see 2 more goals going the way of the Brazilians, and with Zito's effort in the 69th minute leading to Vava's goal in the 78th minute, the match ended as a solid 3-1 victory for the South Americans. Even with an injured Pelé watching from the sidelines, the Brazilians were still able to win their second World Cup title in dominant fashion. The next match in the C tier came 20 years later, with the 1982 World Cup final being played at the Santiago Bernabeu in Madrid, Spain between Italy and West Germany. The first 45 minutes did not produce a goal for either side, and with Antonio Cabrini's penalty miss, the match was headed to halftime stuck at 0-0. The second half more than made up for the first half, with Italy scoring 3 goals in the space of 25 minutes from Rossi, Tardelli, and Altobelli. Paul Breitner's goal in the 83rd minute wouldn't be enough to mount a comeback, and with the game ending as a 3-1 win for Italy, the boys in blue went on to grab their first World Cup title in 44 years. It was a tactical showdown between two of Europe's strongest teams at the time, and it makes for a solid match in the tournament's long and rich history. Continuing on in the C tier, the final 2 matches are the 2002 World Cup final between Brazil and Germany and the 2014 World Cup final between Germany and Argentina. The 2002 World Cup final took place at the International Stadium in Yokohama, Japan, with Brazil looking to redeem themselves after their catastrophic performance from 4 years earlier. The first half of this match saw chances go both ways, but with shots going narrowly wide or hitting the woodwork, the match went into halftime stuck in a scoreless deadlock. Brazil's persistence on offense would eventually be rewarded, and with 2 impressive goals from Ronaldo in the 67th and 79th minute, the match ended as a 2-0 win for the South American side. The Brazilians went on to live their 5th World Cup as they managed to redeem themselves from the nightmare that had occurred 4 years earlier after a solid match. Moving on to the final game in the C tier, the 2014 World Cup final took place at the Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Germany and Argentina met in the final for a record 3rd time, with this matchup being the first since 1990. Both teams struggled to find solid scoring chances throughout the match, with only 9 of the total 20 shots between both sides finding the target. The match went into extra time stuck in a 0-0 deadlock, but one substitution would change the course of World Cup final history forever. With Mario Götze's incredible control and left-footed volley in the 113th minute, Germany went on to grab the first and only goal of the game, as the match ended with them winning by 1-0. This game was a dynamic chess match between two sides who simply couldn't break one another down, and it took a moment of individual brilliance for Germany to go on and win their 4th World Cup title. These 5 matches were all solid in their own rights, and they go into the C tier today. Moving on to the B tier, the first 3 matches are the 1930 World Cup final between Uruguay and Argentina, the 1974 World Cup final between West Germany and the Netherlands, and the 1978 World Cup final between Argentina and the Netherlands. The 1930 World Cup final took place at the Estadio Centenario in Montevideo, Uruguay, with the host nation facing their South American rivals in Argentina. The match got off to a fiery start, with Pablo Dorado opening the scoring in the 12th minute for Uruguay, followed by 2 great goals from Carlos Puselle and Guillermo Stabile to give Argentina a 2-1 lead at halftime. The Uruguayans went on to mount a historic comeback, with Pedro Sella, Santos Iriarte, and Hector Castro scoring 3 consecutive goals to give Uruguay a 4-2 win and their first ever World Cup title. While there may never be a highlight reel of this match to look back on, scoring 3 straight goals against your rivals in a World Cup final is definitely enough to make for a thrilling game. Moving down the list, we have the 1974 World Cup final that took place at the Olympiastadion in Munich, Germany between the Netherlands and West Germany. This match had the makings of a great game from the very first whistle, with Germany's incredible defense going up against the total football system that the Dutch had pioneered. The match got off to a lightning quick start, with Johan Neeskens converting his penalty in only the 2nd minute, giving the visitors an early 1-0 lead. Paul Breitner went on to score a penalty goal of his own in the 25th minute, with Gerd Müller grabbing a goal of his own in the 43rd minute to give the West Germans a 2-1 lead at halftime. The next 45 minutes would end without a goal for either side, and with Müller's offside attempt being the only highlight of the second half, the match would end as a 2-1 victory for the West Germans. The German machine was able to stop the total football powerhouse of the Dutch, and it made for a solid final that won't be forgotten anytime soon. The next match on this list came 4 years later, when the 1978 World Cup final was played at the Estadio Monumental in Buenos Aires, Argentina, between the host nation and the Netherlands. Even before the first second of football was played in this match, there was an extremely hostile atmosphere in and around the stadium between both the fans and the players on the pitch. This cauldron of emotion and excitement saw the opening goal of the match come in the 38th minute, with Mario Kempes slotting home a shot from 12 yards out, giving Argentina a 1-0 lead at halftime. The Dutch side were mounting on the pressure in the second half, and with Naninga's header in the 82nd minute, the match was now level at 1-1 after 90 minutes. Argentina would go on to capitalize on their chances in the extra frame, and with Kempes and Bertoni scoring scoring in both the 105th and 115th minute, the match ended as a 3-1 victory for the host nation. The 1978 World Cup had its fair share of criticism, but there's no denying that the final was an enjoyable game for neutral fans around the world. Continuing on in the B tier, the final 3 matches were the 1998 World Cup final between France and Brazil, the 2010 World Cup final between Spain and the Netherlands, and the 2018 World Cup final between France and Croatia. The 1998 World Cup final was played at the Stade de France in Saint-Denis, France, between Brazil and the host nation. This match will always be remembered for the pre-match chaos surrounding Brazilian forward Ronaldo, but the match itself is still worth talking about. The French side got off to a dominant start in this game, with Zinedine Zidane scoring 2 wonderful headers in the 27th and 45th minute to give France a 2-0 lead at halftime. Throughout the course of the match, Brazil never really looked like their true selves, but still managed to register 6 shots on target from a possible 12. France's final goal in this match came just before the final whistle, and with Emmanuel Petit finishing off a wonderful counterattack, the match ended as a 3-0 victory for the boys in blue. This game will always be plagued with concerns surrounding Brazil's players and their mental states going into the match, but France's tactical masterclass on home soil should never be forgotten about. Moving down the list, we have the 2010 World Cup final that took place in Soccer City in Johannesburg, South Africa between the Netherlands and Spain. While many people argue that the physical nature of this match made for an ugly and boring game, the sheer tension in the air gave it a very unique atmosphere. The first half of the match was a tight battle between the two sides, with Nigel de Jong's challenge on Xabi Alonso resulting in only a yellow card, adding even more drama into the mix. The second half saw the Netherlands miss 2 incredible chances to score the winning goal, with Iker Casillas making not 1 but 2 crucial saves to deny Arjen Robben. With the game going into extra time, a red card for Jan Heitinga in the 109th minute would eventually lead to a winning goal from Andres Iniesta in the 116th minute, giving Spain their first ever World Cup title. While this match will go down as one of the dirtiest and most unsportsmanlike finals of all time, there's no denying that it was some of the most nail-biting football that we will ever see. To round things off, we have the 2018 World Cup final that took place at the Luzhniki Stadium in Moscow, Russia between France and Croatia. The match may not have been as tense or dramatic as earlier finals, but it created plenty of thrilling storylines over the course of 90 minutes. Mario Mandzukic opened the scoring with an own goal in the 18th minute, followed by a thunderous strike from Ivan Perisic in the 28th minute and a smooth penalty from Griezmann in the 38th minute. There was still hope for the Croatians in the second half, but a goal from Pogba in the 59th minute and another goal from Mbappe in the 65th minute gave France a dominant 4-1 lead. With Mbappe becoming the second ever teenager to score in a World Cup final, and with Mandzukic scoring a consolation goal in the 69th minute, the match ended as a 4-2 victory for France. It was a dominant display of football from the French side in a match that won't be forgotten about anytime soon. These 6 matches hold a certain weight when it comes to the World Cup finals, so they go into the B tier for now. Moving on to the A tier, the first 3 matches are the 1950 World Cup final between Uruguay and Brazil, the 1958 World Cup final between Brazil and Sweden, and the 1966 World Cup final between England and West Germany. The 1950 World Cup final was played at the Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil between Uruguay and the host nation. Brazil were the overwhelming favorites going into this match, and in almost everyone's eyes, Uruguay didn't stand a chance in this game. The first half got off to a dominant start for Brazil, but Uruguay did an incredible job to keep the match scoreless with their impressive defense, bringing the game level at 0-0 going into halftime. The Uruguayan defense eventually collapsed in the 47th minute, and with Friasa's goal giving the Brazilians a 1-0 lead, everyone thought the game was already over. But with 2 goals from Juan Alberto Schiaffino and Alcides Gigia in the 66th and 79th minute, the Uruguayans mounted an unthinkable comeback to win the match by a 2-1 scoreline. There are very few games that will ever be able to pull off an upset as big as this one, and the Uruguayan side cemented their legacy in footballing history with this massive achievement. Moving on to the 1958 World Cup final that took place at the Rasunda Stadium in Solna, Sweden, this match saw Brazil go up against the host nation in a 7-goal thriller. The first 10 minutes were filled with action, with Captain Niels Lidholm opening the scoring in the 4th minute for Sweden, followed by 2 goals from Vava in the 9th and 32nd minute. The Swedish side still had something to play for in the second half, but with a brace from a 17-year-old Pele and another goal from Zagallo, the match quickly turned in Brazil's favor. With a consolation goal from Torre Simonsen in the 80th minute, the match ended as a 5-2 win for Brazil, which still remains the largest scoreline in World Cup final history. With attacking football flowing from both ends of the pitch and the start of Brazil's World Cup dynasty, the 1958 final will always be remembered as a great match. Next up in the A tier is the 1966 World Cup final, which took place at Wembley Stadium in London, England, and saw the host nation go up against West Germany. This match will always be remembered for the offside goal that was never called back, but it was also a great football match from start to finish. The West Germans opened the scoring in the 12th minute with a goal from Helmut Haller, but the home side got one back in the 18th minute from Jeff Hurst, bringing the game level at 1-1 going into halftime. The second half would see England grab the lead from a Martin Peters goal in the 78th minute, but with Wolfgang Weber scoring a late equalizer for the West Germans, the match was now heading to extra time. The now iconic third goal for England was controversially scored by Jeff Hurst, but since there was no technology to review with at the time, there was no way of knowing if the ball had truly crossed the line. Jeff Hurst would grab one more goal in in the 120th minute to seal the deal, as England came away with a historic 4-2 victory to claim their first and only World Cup title to date. In a match that was filled with goals, drama, and controversy, there's no denying that this match is an all-time World Cup final classic. Continuing on in the A tier, the final two matches are the 1970 World Cup final between Brazil and Italy and the 1986 World Cup final between Argentina and West Germany. The 1970 World Cup final took place at the Estadio Azteca in Mexico City, Mexico, between Brazil and Italy in front of nearly 107,000 spectators. The first half got off to a relatively even start, with Pelé opening the scoring in the 18th minute, followed by Boni Insenia striking in the 37th minute to bring the game level at 1-1 going into halftime. The second half was an offensive masterclass from the Brazilians, with two great goals from Gerson and Jairzinho coming in the 66th and 71st minute. What followed was the best team goal in World Cup history, and with Carlos Alberto finishing off an incredible setup from his teammates, the match ended as a 4-1 victory for Brazil. It may not have been the closest final in the tournament's history, but Brazil's play in the second half was truly a work of art. Jumping forward to the next World Cup to be played in Mexico, the 1986 World Cup final was also played at the Estadio Azteca in Mexico City, Mexico, but this time it was between Argentina and West Germany. This match got off to a relatively slow start, with Jose Luis Brown's header in the 23rd minute being the only goal of the first 45 minutes. The second half, just like in 1970, was absolutely thrilling, with Argentina extending their lead in the 56th minute while the West Germans grabbed one back in the 74th minute. Rudi Völler went on to tie the game in the 81st minute with a header from close range, but with Jorge Burruchaga's effort finding the back of the net in the 84th minute, the match ended as a 3-2 victory for Argentina. This match couldn't have been more back and forth even if it tried, and with plenty of physicality between the two sides, it made for a thrilling finale to a wonderful tournament. These 5 matches are some of the best that we have ever seen, and they go into the A tier today. And finally, we make it to the S tier, where the last 2 matches are the 1954 World Cup final between West Germany and Hungary and the 2022 World Cup final between Argentina and France. The 1954 World Cup final took place at the Wankdorf Stadium in Bern, Switzerland, which saw West Germany go up against the dominant Hungary side. The Hungarians were undeniably the favorites heading into this game, as they had defeated the West Germans by an 8-3 scoreline earlier in the group stage. Despite the Hungarians going up 2-0 within just 8 minutes with the help of goals from Ferenc Puskás and Zoltán Csibor, the West Germans had a near instant response, getting 2 goals of their own from Max Morlock and Helmut Rahn. The game went into halftime at 2-2, and even though both sides were attacking very well, that 5th goal felt like it was taking an eternity to arrive. Against all odds, Helmut Rahn went on to grab his brace in the 84th minute, and with the referee's final whistle, the West Germans completed an unthinkable 3-2 comeback to win their first World Cup title. This match remains as one of the most unbelievable underdog stories in footballing history and one of the most exciting World Cup finals that has ever taken place. And to finish things off, we have the 2022 World Cup final that was played at the Lusail Stadium in Lusail, Qatar, between Argentina and France. This match was filled with dramatic storylines right from the get-go, and with Messi versus Mbappe headlining the pre-match discussions, this game exceeded everyone's expectations. The match got off to a thrilling start, with Messi's penalty goal in the 23rd minute and Di Maria's incredible finish in the 36th minute, giving Argentina a solid 2-0 lead going into halftime. France were just 10 minutes away from losing the World Cup, but in the space of 2 minutes, a penalty goal and a beautiful volley from Kylian Mbappe brought the game level at 2-2 as the full-time whistle blew. The extra 30 minutes produced even more drama, with Messi's second goal of the night barely making it over the line and Mbappe's incredible hat-trick bringing the game level at 3-3. With just seconds left in the match, Emi Martinez made an unthinkable save to deny Randall Kolo Muani from scoring the winning goal, and the match was forced to go to penalties. With Kingsley Coman and Aurelien Tchouameni missing their respective penalties, it would be Gonzalo Montiel's attempt that would give Argentina a 4-2 win on penalties, handing them their 3rd ever World Cup title. This game is without a doubt the best in World Cup final history, and it will be talked about for many generations to come. These 2 matches produced a level of drama and excitement that football fans could have only dreamed of as they go into the S tier today. So there you have it, we've ranked all 22 World Cup finals dating all the way back to 1930 and with the most recent edition in 2022. Every World Cup final is filled with its own respective storylines, and there has never been a match that has failed to produce its own kind of magic. This tournament truly is the pinnacle of the beautiful game, and it's only fair that the finale is almost always a grand spectacle. With billions of fans preparing to tune into the 2026 World Cup final, we can only hope that this streak of historic matches continues. There is nothing else in sports that comes close to the energy of a World Cup final, and that's what makes this game so special. But what did you think of my World Cup final ranking? Are there any matches that you would move higher or lower, and which of these matches is your all-time favorite? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more football content, tier lists, and everything in between, and as always, I'll catch you next time.